shortly. Right now, with us is Councilor Curley from Western Mass, and I'm going to read a letter from the governor dated July 22nd, 2020. I am pleased to nominate Elizabeth Teixeira to the position of Associate Justice of the Probate and Family Court. I submit this nomination for the advice and consent of the Executive Council pursuant to Part 2, Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I'm enclosing the nominee's resume for convenience. Before we start your statement, because we're not having witnesses today, as I instructed you not to, we do have a number of letters that I'm going to go over briefly in a few moments, but we're going to go a little out of order. Councilor Curley is going to make some comments first, because I know that she has some other matters to attend. Councilor Curley?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I have been speaking with a nominee for some length, and after speaking with her and reviewing her application, I'm more than satisfied that she has the proper attitudes. She certainly has the experience and the demeanor to put forth a great effort on behalf of the citizens of the Commonwealth in the probate court. She's been a divorce practitioner for an incredible number of years. And the one question I asked her was, do you still like it? And she said, yes, which tells me that she has got what it takes to be a good judge. That is the patience and the understanding of the human spirit at its worst. And I have every intention of voting for her. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Curley. I know that Councilor Jubinville and Councilor Devaney just stepped out, so we'll wait a minute or two for them to come in before we continue.
Councilor Duff.
Oh, Councilor Duff, how are you? Welcome. I wanted you are muted, but it's nice to see you here. We're going to, I already read the letter. Mary made some comments. In a couple of minutes, we're going to get the statement from the nominee. There are no witnesses, but there are letters in lieu of witnesses.
Excellent.
Just waiting for a minute for Bob and Councilor Jubinville and Councilor Devaney to come back in the room. They just stepped out. We'll give them 2 or 3 minutes. We're live streaming on YouTube. I don't know if you're aware of that. You know that? Yeah. The microphone? Yeah. I got to get closer. Down. All right, you can say it. I'm having trouble with the electronics in here. All right, well, while we're waiting for them, I'm going to go over the letters that folks sent in. I have the first letter I have, and I know that Judge Patrick Stanton was going to be a witness when he gave a letter in lieu of it. Brian Dunham of Taunton, Massachusetts, a former client of yours. Nancy Sylvia, an attorney from Raynham, Massachusetts. F. Stephen Trifletti, an attorney at Trifletti and Costa from Plymouth, Massachusetts, and Laura O'Connell of Taunton, Massachusetts, a former client and lifelong friend of yours. I know they all wanted to be here, but because of COVID restrictions and social distancing, we're proceeding in a different manner. I have a letter from Tom Connery, dated July 29, 2020, asking us to accept this as a character reference on behalf of Beth Ferraro, a candidate for judgeship in the probate court. I'm not going to read all these letters into the record, but I can tell you that they are in the public file and available for review by all the counselors and anybody else who wants to see them. We have a letter from F. Stephen Trifletti. It's with great pleasure and enthusiasm I write this letter of recommendation on behalf of Attorney Teixeira. It goes on to look like she should be nominated for sainthood instead of the judgeship. We have a letter from, somebody's long-winded. Captain, whose is it? Whose? of the law office that includes Swansea, Mass, with a very strong letter of recommendation as well. We have a letter from Gail DeMello Madeira.
Oh, yes.
We didn't expect that one. Yes. She was a lifelong resident of the city of Taunton, a sole practitioner in Taunton for 26 years. It talks about your late father. I'm going to read that first paragraph. My interaction with the Teixeira family was when I was a student at Taunton High School. Mr. Edmund Teixeira, best late father, was my housemaster for 4 years, and her mother, Mrs. Ann Teixeira, was a teacher at Taunton High School, and her sister Kathleen was my classmate. I learned from my interactions with Teixeira that the kind, respectful, hardworking individuals who exhibit strong moral character and well-liked in the community. It goes on to describe the relationship further. I am sure that your mother's very proud, and your father, if you were alive, and children here, he would be very proud as well. Then I have a letter from Denise Matson, who is apparently at work for you. It indicates that, I'm sorry, I have the blessed to know both as an employer and friend since 1994, who gives rave reviews. Then I have I couldn't get anything else. No. Then I have a letter from Justice Stanton, Associate Justice of the Probate and Family Court, who you've appeared in front of a number of times, who indicates that you're an outstanding practitioner. I have a letter dated July 26, 2020, from Laura O'Connell of Taunton, Massachusetts, who says she's known you for 55 years, and goes on to talk about her history with you and your character in very glowing terms. I have a letter from Brian Dunham. Read the first paragraph of that. He's a detective with the Taunton Police Department. Is that correct? Yes. My name is Brian Dunham, and I am writing in regards to the nomination of Elizabeth Teixeira as a candidate for appointment to the Massachusetts Probate and Family Court Judgeship. The nomination of Beth to this position could not be more well deserved, and the selection will only further the court's mission of providing equal access to a fair and equitable and efficient forum, and to assist and protect all individuals, families, and children in an impartial and respectful manner. And goes on and on as well. And then I have a letter from Nancy Burke Sylvia, who is a colleague of yours. She's known you over 30 years, and once again described you in glowing terms. All of these letters are in the file. They're available to all councils in the public. They're copied, and then they're made part of the record. And they are witnesses to the COVID pandemic. We do like witnesses, but given the circumstances, we're trying to act in a safe manner as possible. That said, we would like to hear you say. Yes.
Where is the witness?
There were no. I've instructed her not to bring any witnesses because of the COVID pandemic. As I just said.
But she's allowed to bring 3 people of her family.
That's
Where
right.
does the pandemic come in there?
Point of information taken. Could we get a statement, please?
Good morning. I would like to thank each of you on the Governor's Council for giving me this opportunity. I would like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to discuss my qualifications. I would especially like to thank my host council, Terrence Kennedy, for his graciousness throughout this process. Your kindness and professionalism are very much appreciated. I would like to thank Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, Attorney Ross, the Governor's Chief Legal Counsel, and Lauren Green, Petrino, Director of the JNC, for taking the time to consider me for this awesome responsibility.
Could you speak up a little bit?
Oh, sorry. My name is Elizabeth Teixeira Ferraro. I have used my maiden name for business purposes for the last almost 32 years, and am known in the legal community as Beth Teixeira. In Reading, I'm just known as Andrew and Matthew's mom. I would like to give you some information that is not on my application or resume so that you get a glimpse of the whole person. I am one of 7 children. My parents were both public servants. They were high school sweethearts, and when my dad enlisted in the Marine Corps, my mom left college and married my father. My father later went on to college on the GI Bill. My father was a high school history teacher, football coach, housemaster at Taunton High School, and ended his career as a middle school principal. Everyone at the high school knew Mr. Tex or Coach Tex. Upon retirement, he was elected to the Taunton School Committee and hosted a local radio program, Sinatra and Friends. I remember being embarrassed as a young teen because my father played his records so loudly. My mother was perfect. She was humble, kind, compassionate, funny, nurturing, and a woman of great faith. She was my biggest cheerleader. She always told me that I could do anything so long as I worked hard, was honest, and that education would be the vehicle to realize my dreams. Remember that. Readers are leaders, she would always say. After the youngest of 7 entered school, my mom returned to college, earned both her bachelor's degree and master's degree. I watched her both as a reading specialist and 2nd grade teacher be so kind and compassionate to all of her students. She brought in snacks for those students who could not afford one, provided school supplies, and even took a student to the movies because he was the only one in the class who had never been to the movies. Both of my parents were wonderful role models. They were humble public servants, dedicated to the youth in Taunton. They often spoke to us about, along with rights come responsibilities, about being a good citizen and giving back to the community. My dad passed away 13 years ago, and my mom fell in March. Horrible fall, broke 11 bones, was hospitalized, later came down with COVID, and is now in a skilled nursing facility. I wish she could grasp all of this because I know she would be incredibly proud. I was also fortunate to have grandparents in my life. My Irish grandfather, Andrew McManus, who my family was named after, worked for the water department as a meter reader and was always there for us every day after school when my mom went back to college. He was killed by a drunk driver when I was in high school, and it shook my world. My maternal grandmother died when my mom was 15, and I never got to know her. She was the first married school teacher in Taunton and paved the way for others. My Portuguese grandmother was a dressmaker, and my grandfather worked in a factory in Dayton. Everyone at my first job knew not to schedule anything at noon on a Wednesday because that time was for lunch with my abroad. I am the product of public education. I went to Taunton High School and the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. Being from a big family, I put myself through college and law school. At UMass, I studied political science and Portuguese. I fell in love with the language and the culture, and I ended up studying at the University of Massachusetts in Worcester. I earned my law degree while working full-time. During my sophomore year in college, I met a handsome young man named Joe Ferraro at a fraternity party. We dated for 10 years, married in 1989, and have been together since. I am blessed to have 2 wonderful sons, Andrew and Matthew. Like my parents, I have impressed upon them that education would be the vehicle for them to realize their dreams. Andrew is a financial analyst, and Matthew is studying to be a teacher. I have volunteered on many boards and have always been active in each of my communities, both in Taunton and in Reading. During my career, I have represented men. I have represented women. I have represented grandparents. I have represented children. I have represented those with addiction issues. I have represented those with mental health issues. I have represented the indigent. I have represented business owners. I have served as both a guardian ad litem and an art attorney. Throughout my career, I have helped many, but I am most proud of my commitment to doing pro bono work. It is a big part of who I am. I always wanted to be in a profession where I could help people. I have done that. I believe that my work experience, my life experience, my open-mindedness, my work ethic, and more importantly, my sincere belief that every person who crosses my path should be treated with compassion, dignity, and respect. I believe that these qualities make me qualified to be an Associate Justice of the Probate and Family Court. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have for me.
Great. Before we proceed with questions, I just want to introduce our council, my father, the leader of the council, Mr. Brian Noah. You just get up, that's right, it's small. My immediate left is Councilor Payne. My immediate right is Councilor Julia. On my left is Councilor Dutton, who just saw Councilor earlier 2 minutes ago. I know Councilor Ferrara is going to be speaking in short. He indicated that he was tied up a little bit. He'll be involved shortly. That said, Councilor Mann.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Thank you for coming out that very hot day. It was really a pleasure. And, you know, and the diary just reopened just about 3 weeks before, so I was happy for that. I think it was almost 4 hours, wasn't it? So, but anyway, I do want to say right in the beginning for the public to know, I've been here 21 years. I have never had any nominee before me that had as many pro bono cases as you have. Remarkable. Over 200. That is, I mean, we have people that have had none, some have a couple, but I am just, you can't hear me? What is it? Oh, I'm sorry. All right, then I apologize. I'm going to repeat. They said they couldn't hear me. I said that you are the first nominee in my 21 years that had the number of pro bono cases. It's remarkable. And while other attorneys are out there making as much money as they can, you spend years with people, 5, 6 years, not a day or a month, over 200. And that is something that I think should be said about your empathy and compassion. And everyone knows here, they get sick of me saying it. Those are the attributes I look for in a judge, empathy and compassion, and you absolutely have it. First of all, I want to personally apologize that you don't have a witness. This started a month ago. For over 60 years, we always have witnesses. That's a public hearing. And you're allowed to have your family, but you know, the witness is the person that the councils talk to, and we interact and ask questions about the nominee. And so there really isn't a public hearing without a witness, so I want to put that in the record. And I would like to ask the chair, we got letters from all the people who wanted to be a witness, but I think it would be, appropriate, and I would ask the chair if he would just read after the questioning is, your questioning has ended, to just read Judge Stanton, I think, in respect to him, because he wanted to be with us. Oh, all right, okay, I will read that after I ask questions. Thank you very much. First of all, one of the pro bono cases, it's like 5, 6 years you spent with that woman, and you said in your questionnaire it was the most tragic that you had. So do you want to tell the public about that particular case?
Well, certainly. I represented the mother who had 5 children. The 3 youngest children were taken by DCF because there were allegations from her ex-husband that there was sexual abuse going on in her home. And at first, one person was accused, and at a later point, one of the older sisters were accused of molesting the younger 3 children. So there was a guardian ad litem appointed, and the guardian ad litem testified in the initial hearing that there was physical evidence of sexual abuse, and it was not. The children were placed in foster care, then they were placed in specialized foster care, and one of the girls ended up in Pembroke Hospital. After, I believe it was 7 years, the children were returned to mom, and Dr. Ken Herman from Children's Hospital was appointed as the second guardian ad litem, and the children disclosed that there was never any sexual abuse, that they were pressured by father and his new wife to say so, and the children were reunited with their mother.
The other case, one of the other cases that you have so many that are so heartfelt. I don't know how you want to do this job of going to that court, but the one that really I couldn't believe, you had a case with a developmental delayed man, and he had moved in with this woman who was already pregnant. She said that he was the father, and he signed it, and all of that. I mean, I've seen a lot of cases, but I haven't seen one like that. Could you tell the counsel about that?
Sure.
Could the nominee microphone closer?
Oh, you mean the nominee's phone? Okay, all right. Thank you, Mary.
Is that better?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. That was a case where this gentleman's sisters brought him in to see me. And as soon as I spoke to him, I thought he didn't have the capacity to sign the acknowledgement of paternity. So the mother had gone through the Department of Revenue to try to get child support from him. I think he worked 10 hours a week at Walmart. So what I ended up doing was I fought, because the statute says you have 60 days to rescind your acknowledgement. So the statutory period had expired. So what I did was I ended up filing a complaint in equity and alleged that not only did he not have the capacity, but he was not the father of these two children, and that the biological father was incarcerated, and that was the incentive for mother to try to get money from this gentleman. And the acknowledgement of paternity was rescinded, and his name was removed from the birth certificate.
And was that a pro bono case too?
Oh, yes, it was.
That was another pro bono. How many years were you involved in the first case that I brought up?
I believe it was 7 years.
7 years. And this one, how long?
This was a little under 2 years.
You know what? And I mean this. I mean, and I don't. I usually have a poker face, but I'll tell you, I am so impressed because I haven't seen that. I haven't seen people years involved in pro bono to help people who don't have the financial means, and you reached out to them. It is remarkable. Now, I've always said, the thing that bothers me about the JNC questionnaire, and you answer all the questions quite nicely, is that you can't put all of the case in, and I don't know, as they say, the rest of the story. So you have one here, and it's about complaints for modification and contempt, and it ended in December 2018, and it was a divorce case. And it ended up that you said one complaint for modification was tried, and it doesn't say, how did it end? How was that resolved?
It was resolved that the judgment was that father retained custody of his daughter. What had happened there was mother petitioned for custody of, after the trial, father was awarded sole legal and physical custody of his two daughters. After every year, every summer it seemed, she would file some type of complaint, whether it was to change the parenting time or change of custody. And so it was odd because she only asked for custody of the older daughter. And then midway through, then she decided, well, I'm going to ask for custody of the younger one too. I tried the case, and father retained custody of his two two daughters.
Do you see, in past years, maybe it's changed a little bit or now, that the judgment has always seemed to go more with the mother than the father? You've seen it?
Oh, I think in my early years of practice, it was almost a standard that, you know, fathers would get one dinner visit a week and every other weekend, and that was it. I think the probate court is evolving to realize that both parents should have access to the children. And my philosophy is when divorcing parents walk into the courtroom, they're on equal footing. Unless I would hear evidence that would make me go one way or the other, whether it's physical abuse or substance abuse or some other thing. But, you know, along the way, as practitioners, we've become incredibly creative in developing parenting plans where it's more equal. And that's the way I think it should be, because it's not about the divorcing couple, it's about the children and their right to access to both of their parents.
Right. Well, I guess that statement answers it. I didn't ask you when we met about joint custody, your philosophy.
My philosophy is that well, on legal custody, there's a presumption that married parents, it's in the best interests of the children to have shared legal custody. On physical custody, which I think we should get rid of that word, and in a lot of my agreements, we don't mention physical custody. We only refer to a parenting plan because I think it's often offensive to one parent or the other. So we try not to use that language, but parents come in on equal footing, and they should both have shared access to their children. And more importantly, their children should have the right to see both parents.
Well, now that you answered that question, I'm going to tell you, I'm a member of Women in Leadership for Joint Custody. And we now have members outside of the country, hundreds. Now, I have this only Counselor Iannella was on the council at the time. And so this is nothing that the other councils would know. But we had someone that was appointed to the probate court and picked up the Globe one day, and I read about a judgment she made. And it was a woman who wanted to move to Oregon, across the country, with 3 toddlers. And she didn't have a job waiting or a family waiting or a friend waiting. And in investigating, I found out that the father was a very loving father. He lived very close to them. He used to see them often during the week. And he even would come the night before Christmas, so he would be there when they got up after Santa came. And so she allowed the father visiting rights 6 to 7 on the internet. And so, given that, I know that you have had a case, and I want you to talk about, removal. And, what criteria would you use to allow a parent to remove the child and go anywhere, another state, across the country, or wherever?
Well, the standard has to be extremely high, and it should be rare that a parent is allowed to leave the Commonwealth with their child, because you are depriving the children of a right to a real relationship with the other parent. The litmus test was set forth in the Giannis case, and that was what we call the real advantage test. And the real advantage test is two-pronged. First, you look at, is the motive sincere? Is there a sincere reason why the removing parent wants to leave the Commonwealth? Does he or she have a great job opportunity and family out in the other state or other country? With Giannis, it was a different country. And then you look at what's in the best interest of the children. Now, in that case, mother had physical custody prior to petitioning for removal. In cases where parents share physical custody, you just look at the best interest of the children, and that was the Mason-Coleman case. But now there's been another case, the Miller case, that says if there's no order, or if the order you're not sure what it is because you don't specify who has physical custody, then there has to be a functional analysis of what they have actually been doing to figure out which standard you're going to apply, whether it is the real advantage standard or the best interest standard. And I believe the Chief Justice made a commentary in the Miller case saying that he thinks every case should balance the real advantage and best interest of the children.
Was there one case that that comes to mind, if I can remember? I mean, people have to know, this is what she's coming with. We have to look into. But there was a man that you represented, and you won, and he was able to take the child. So just to reinforce your philosophy,
yes.
Could you tell us about that?
Yes, I advocated for him, and the circumstances in that case were quite different because the family had planned to move to Virginia, and the family agreed that Dad would go down with I think he was 12-year-old boy first. Mom would stay with the little girl that was in kindergarten, and she'd finish out the year here because she had a dance recital coming up that she was excited about. So Dad took the older boy down to Virginia, enrolled him in school, got him involved in activities, baseball, other things. And then, out of the blue, Mother files an emergency motion. She filed for divorce and an emergency motion for custody, and there was an order for him to return. And I said, you have to come back right away. There's a court order, you need to obey it. But, so he was ordered to return the child to Mother, and when he got back, Mother's down the Cape, and unfortunately, she had a abuse issue with alcohol, and a week went by. She never got the children. And so, then the judge said, well, what was the emergency? And so I showed that this was the plan. This guy had an incredible job down in Virginia. I mean, he was managing all kinds of insurance companies. And so we didn't try the case, but boy, was it long. It lasted a while. And we ended up coming up with a very creative parenting plan for Mother. And so she had access to the children every month. Fortunately, these people had enough money, to be flying back and forth and that type of thing. And that couple ended up reconciling. Mother went to a program, as well, and Father had another job opportunity to come back to Massachusetts, and they ended up reconciling.
Well, I always say, we counsels don't have a crystal ball, and we don't know, when we appoint someone, how they're going to act. And, just your experience tells us already, your philosophy and how you feel about justice. Now, I'm very concerned about child abuse. And I know there's a lot of child abuse out there that we can't know that's happening in the home, only if it's reported. How much of that have you seen in your in all of your cases?
I will tell you, I've seen a lot of it, more than I would have liked to see. My very first case as a guardian ad litem was a case for termination of parental rights, and I represented two little girls who had been raped because their mother was a drug addict, and there were all kinds of people just coming in and out of the house, and it was, that was another tragic case. It was very sad. You know, a lot of times, the abuse, when there's physical abuse, there's usually a substance abuse issue, at least in my experience that I've seen.
I'm especially concerned about this, and I mentioned it to the Lieutenant Governor, and she has given out a number on TV to call for, you know, for any abuse, you know, domestic or child abuse. And my big concern is how the pandemic is affecting this. If a child is being abused and they go to school, the teacher will see a bruise or some different conduct of this child. But now we don't see that. And what I'm concerned is about the babies and the toddlers who can't talk, who can't tell anyone, who don't see anyone. So this is a very difficult time for justice. It really is. And what concerns me is, and I see it so often in all of the cases I've seen through the years, that you have women who have some, you know, some criminal boyfriend on drugs or whatever, and they're abusing sexually and even ended up killing their child, and they will stand by their man. It just is, it's just incredible. Now, I'm not gonna go through all your cases. You can, it's amazing. But just tell us about the one that the mother had a boyfriend, he had substance abuse and everything else. And I like the result of that. You want to talk about that, the parenting plan and all of that. I think it was you were representing the father, and it was it Christopher Mitchell? Was that the one?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yes, okay. That was I represented him on the initial divorce. This was a modification. Mother had, she had a boyfriend. Number one, the first boyfriend was selling drugs in the home. So we had filed a modification, gone back to court on that, resolved that issue. She ended up leaving him. And then she became involved with another gentleman who overdosed on fentanyl, was in a horrible car accident, paralyzed someone. He was revived when he overdosed, and you know, he had just had enough. You know, his girls were exposed to this, and it was just poor decision making on Mom's part. And you know, the sad thing is she's a very good mother. She is involved in their activities. They're clean when they go to school. She does their homework with them. It's just a poor choice in men. And we ended up, unfortunately, you know, two of the girls are teenagers. They want to live with Mom. They didn't want to live with Dad. So there were restrictions put in place. And this particular gentleman ended up being incarcerated, but you know, no drugs or alcohol in the home, those types of things. But those are hard to enforce unless someone tells us that someone's violating that provision of a judgment.
Again, tell us again how long you've been a lawyer practicing.
I believe it's 32 years now.
32 years. You don't look it.
Oh, thank you.
32 years. And so tell us, what is the percentage of judges that will, that have approved your, you know, when you come before them and you win the case because they agree that the child should be removed? What's the percentage of removal cases have you won?
Oh, only one.
Yeah.
Only one. And
Difficult, huh?
very difficult. I have defended removal cases, and I have lost a removal case.
Right. Well, I like your writings, okay? And on that one, that was another, so would you say, what's your percentage representing men and women?
I'd say it's equal.
It's equal. That's what I saw. Now tell me about in the writings that you presented, and the wife was an alcoholic, and no matter what he tried to help her, the husband, it was to no avail. And do you want to tell us about that case?
Yes, that was the case I just spoke of on the removal case where he had the great job offer in Virginia. The family had planned to move down, and then suddenly she became active in her alcoholism again. And, you know, but I think that the removal and not being able to see her children as much finally got her to go into a more intensive program. And happy to say that, you know, she had been alcohol free, and that's the case where the parties reconciled after divorce.
And you know, I don't know how you have time for your church and community involvement, but you know, it's wonderful. You want to say anything about that involvement that you find time?
I love my involvement at my church. You know, if you said to me, you have to give every activity up except for one, teaching confirmation would be the one activity that I would not give up. I love it. I enjoy working with teenagers. Both of my boys were in my confirmation class. During Matthew's year, I had 23 boys in my class. But, you know, I want them to see, to be good people, to have some type of faith, to care about others that are less fortunate than they are. Every year, my class volunteers at Special Olympics bowling, and now I have a new tradition where we make, I don't know, we made 80 bag lunches last year. The kids and I took the train into Boston. We went to the Common, and we handed out lunches to the homeless. And when we were getting off the train, I believe I spoke to Councilor Duff about this. There was a gentleman sitting on the ground, and he obviously had the daylights kicked out of him the night before. And I just leaned over and said, "Would you like a lunch?" And he said, "Yes." And the kids were all, you know, gee, but I want them to see how fortunate they are and realize how fortunate they are and the need to help those who are less fortunate.
Yeah, that's great. I think the word is shocked that you were rejected. You, when you went before the JNC, they approved you 3 years ago.
Yes.
And the governor rejected you.
Well, he
Do you want to
didn't,
tell us about that?
he didn't interview me, so I don't look at it as he rejected me. And
Indirectly, I guess so.
but you know, there have been qualified candidates appointed during that time. So, and you know, I look at it as it just wasn't my time. And you know, with my mother falling and everything else, she needed me more at this time. So the timing is perfect now. My boys are out, you know, other than Matthew, he's still studying, but you know, they're older, you know, they don't need me as much. The time is right, and I am thrilled to have this opportunity.
Well, I'll tell you, besides your legal experience, I look for life experience. I don't want someone 40 years old that's going to be 30 years on the bench, and you bring that life experience. Now, I always ask nominees about how you got here. So I'd like to know the process. You got interviewed by the JNC. How many of the 21 lawyers are appointed by the governor with the awesome responsibility, those 21 people, to interview, to ask you questions, and then vote and recommend to the governor to bring you before the council for a judgeship? Now, tell us, how many of the 21 were there?
It was my understanding that they broke into two groups, and half was there.
No, but just your group. I'm just asking about your here.
My group was half of them, and one participated by telephone, I think due to health issues.
So
But
how many were there present?
There were a lot of them, and I was nervous. There were, yeah, yeah. There were 10, I believe there were 10 people there.
Let's say 11 or 10 and a half never saw you, never met you, never talked with you, and voted for you. That's not my democracy. Let me ask you something. That half person that was on the phone, as Councilor Kennedy has said, any questions from that
Yes,
phone call?
yes.
Oh my God, you got one.
I got a lot of questions.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear
Yes.
that. That's wonderful. Okay, so so how long was it after that? Tell me, when you come out of the JNC interview, did they give you any indication that you're going to be, that you're going to be appointed, or you're going to be seeing the governor or anybody?
No, because at that point in time, they haven't voted. So it's my understanding that the process is they report back to the other half, tell them their thoughts on, and then they vote on who they're going to do due diligence on. And I did receive a letter at that point saying that they had voted to do due diligence.
So I'm with the chair's permission, I'm going to read a letter from Judge Stanton. And with your permission, can we allow the nominee to introduce her family? Okay, all right, okay. I said permission, okay. That's okay. Yeah, okay. First of all, there were at least 5 people that wrote beautiful letters that, Councilor Kennedy mentioned the names. But one of them in particular I thought should be read. It was Judge Stanton, who these people all wanted to be here as witnesses. So this is Judge Stanton's letter. Dear members of the Governor's Council, it is with pleasure and enthusiasm that I submit this letter of recommendation on behalf of Attorney Elizabeth Teixeira in support of her application for appointment to the bench and upcoming hearing. I am currently an Associate Justice of the Probate and Family Court, and I have been so for over 8 years. Prior to my appointment, I was engaged in the private practice of law. Over the last 8 years, I've had the pleasure of presiding over countless cases handled by Attorney Teixeira. Attorney Teixeira, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right.
It's good.
Has represented parties before me in cases involving divorce, child support, cases involving custody and parenting time, as well as guardianship matters. Attorney Teixeira is extremely knowledgeable and is always prepared. She also has the ability to think on her feet and is able to handle unexpected situations, which so often come up in cases before the probate and family court. She is professional and civil at all times. I have witnessed her civility and compassion on countless occasions. Her professionalism extends not only to the court, but to all court employees, as well as fellow members of the bar, her clients, and even to opposing pro se parties. Her ability to show compassion for all, even those on the opposing side of cases in which she is involved, speaks volumes of the person she is. She also possesses the judicial temperament that is as important as a trait as any terms of suitability for appointment to the bench. I have witnessed her ability to remain even-tempered under stressful circumstances in the courtroom. Her experience, knowledge, compassion, and temperament are all attributes which would make her an asset to the bench, especially in the probate and family court. It is with great enthusiasm that I give her the highest possible recommendation. Thank you kindly for your attention to my remarks and for the truly important work you do. If you have any questions regarding Attorney Teixeira or would like to discuss this matter further, please do not hesitate to contact me, Patrick W. Stanton, Associate Justice, Probate and Family Court, Plymouth Division. Thank you very much. And I want to thank you for all the time that you gave me. It's such a pleasure I wish I could clone you. Thank you.
Thank you. I got two things for you.
Okay,
First of all, we agree with you that the rest of the board system.
I would agree with you.
So not gonna hear any stories coming out of your courtroom that you be rating, like they show up dressed.
Oh, good God, no,
You're not gonna find anybody showing up in your court dressed a certain way.
never.
Okay. And second of all, the lawyer has got another case, and he's late to get to your court, he's not gonna be fined by you.
Never. Oh,
Excuse me,
thank you.
Counselor Jubinville, could you speak into your mic?
Yeah, you've done a lot of pro bono work, and I congratulate you for that, but that's over now. Now you're gonna be getting paid for your work, okay?
Okay,
Yeah, thank you very much.
thank you.
It is not, you really.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It's like this television ad. It's terrific to see you. Thank you for your application. We had a wonderful conversation, which could have spanned on for probably days if we'd had the time. You know, I'm not going to belabor this hearing with more questions. You answered everything for me. As I stated to you, one of my biggest concerns for all the judges that we are appointing, in particularly in your court, in this time of pandemic, which is not most likely going to end anytime soon, is for preparation in every way, including, you know, mental, physical, and spiritual, to be able to withstand not just the pressure, but really some of the unfortunate situations that you're going to see. I feel, you know, you're one of the candidates I actually feel quite comfortable that you've already done a lot of that work and you're ready for it. And it's hard work, and it's hard work that we have to, all of us in public life, have to stop and reflect on. And so I'm quite confident that you will be able to do that and willing to do the inner work. One thing I didn't ask you that I am going to ask you, when this is all over, if you ascend to the bench, would you be willing to go back into public schools and talk to kids about your experiences and of being an attorney? And I believe it offers students hope when they see people, a woman with a large family, a woman who's achieved so much, perhaps against odds at times. Would you be willing to do that? Okay, I can't hear you, but I could read.
Sorry. I would be more than willing to do that, and I have done that over the years in Taunton through the Chamber of Commerce. They have a school to work program, and where people from different jobs go in and talk to the students about what they do and how they got to where they are.
Yeah, thank you. Terrific. Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Council Ferrara.
Where is he?
He's on. Council Ferrara.
Oh, he's remote.
Chairman, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Can't see you.
I don't have any questions for the nominee. I want to say that I spoke to her. I've gotten many cell phone calls and emails from people in the Taunton area saying how wonderful she is, how well equipped. The fact that she's Portuguese doesn't hurt her at all. Her and I had many conversations. I think she's going to be a wonderful addition to the probate court, be fair and consistent, and be a great addition. So thank you for putting yourself out there. Thank you for your service in the past. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having me go by webinar. Sorry, I had a bad connection earlier.
Ferrara. Dean Iannella.
Thank you very much. We had a lovely conversation. I was so impressed with you on the phone. I just have one question. I was going to ask you no questions. You answered all my questions. But we heard the term today, joint custody, joint physical custody, joint legal custody. I think with the average person, they think of the word joint, like joint tenancy, joint bank account. They think it's 50-50. We hear that terminology, it could be 90% to 10%. So I personally don't like that phrase, joint legal or joint physical. Do you agree with me that joint legal or joint physical does not mean anywhere near, it could, but it does not necessarily mean 50-50.
I agree with you. And I don't particularly care for the terminology either. And in many of my divorce agreements, we don't use that language. We'll say shared legal custody. And then we don't mention physical custody. We just say the parties will adhere to the following parenting plan. And then that way, I mean, it's less offensive if people aren't hung up on. And unfortunately, I think women are more hung up on who has physical custody. You know what? People should worry about what type of parenting plan they're going to have and how well their children will adjust to it.
I agree. Even I personally don't even like the term shared custody because, again, it gives the connotation of 50-50. I just like it. Here's the parenting plan. Mm-hmm. But either way, you were great. I think you're a remarkable person. Your kids, I mean, they must be so proud of you today.
I hope so.
I just want to say one other thing. I did speak, just for the other councils, I did speak with Chief Justice Casey, by the way, he thinks you're fantastic. And he was great to take time out of his busy schedule to talk to me. Because there was an issue that I brought up a couple of weeks ago when Judge Anderson was before us. We talked about conciliations and he had a witness there. But for the other members of the council, I know Councilor Julio was concerned about it, maybe some of the others were or not. They do have that program at the probate court, and it is successful. However, Judge Casey, this is the impression that I got from him. It's almost like they're very effective. Maybe Anderson's witness said 70% of the time. And I think we talked about it as well. They're effective when you're almost at the goal line. There's very few issues left. Children don't ask why do we have attorneys? If we have conciliations, all these people come before the probate court, they wouldn't need attorneys to save a lot of money. But Judge Casey was very good how he explained it to me, that it was basically, I don't want to say the goal line, but close to the goal line, and the conciliator can resolve the issue. But again, you were great on the phone. You seemed like you were so compassionate too. And when your name comes before the council at the next meeting, enthusiastically in your call. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. The only thing I'm going to say is that, well, first of all, we spent a lot of time together talking on the phone the last couple of weeks of nomination, and an absolute home run. Nothing to talk about. You're going to be, I think, probably the best candidate we've had for the probate court, maybe ever, since I've been on the council. And I think that you know how to count. Where did you go to high school?
Went to Taunton High School.
Yeah, Taunton, they trust you how to count.
They did.
And I think if you're counting here today, I think there's a very strong likelihood that when we meet the next time, that we're going to get approved. Certainly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.